JPC with Daphna Liel, Knesset correspondent of Channel 12, on the political situation. Yesterday, we ran a webinar with Professor Arnon Afek, Director of Sheba General Hospital. Tomorrow, we will run another one at 3 o'clock with Rabbi Yoshua Pfeffer, head of the Haredi, ultra-Orthodox department at the Tikva Fund, on the ramifications of the coronavirus on the Haredi community. We will create a WhatsApp group for this series, so you will always be in the loop if you wish. We record these webinars and we can send you a link immediately, and later it will run on YouTube. I want to thank my colleagues, Rachel Feller and Raya Koval of JPC, for facilitating this webinar. A word about Daphna Liel. She's been the Knesset correspondent of Channel 12 since 2015, and I think she deserves to be included in the Guinness Book of Records for covering 3 election campaigns in 1 year, maybe 4. We'll soon find out. Before that, she covered education and a media career started at Galei Tzahal, the Army Radio. On her website, she says she's happily married and she's a mother of 2. And
it was before the corona.
And that her family is her anchor of sanity in this roller coaster called journalism. Daphna will start with a short introduction, then we'll open up for Q&A. You are on mute, so please type your questions and Daphna will answer them. Daphna, please, and why don't you start with an update of what's going on today, and then open up for a wider angle.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm very happy to be with you. These are very hectic, even weird days in Israeli politics. We are dealing with events we've never seen before, even today, when we're waiting as we speak for Edelstein, the head of the Knesset, to announce whether he's going to respect the decision of the Supreme Court yesterday. We thought it would be obvious that he will, but we're still waiting. There wasn't a response from yesterday, and it should be, I think, any minute. But I'll talk to you a little bit about the attempts to form a government, because that's it's all connected and it's very important, especially now that Israel is also dealing with the corona crisis. So first of all, let's talk about the options that are on the table. Just right now, a few minutes before we started this conversation, Netanyahu again tweeted that he's calling Gantz to meet and to form a government today, not even later than that. But there are still many problems in the way to a national unity government. It's still very far. And what we see nowadays in the Knesset and all the responses not to respect the Supreme Court decision makes it very difficult for blue and white to join the government. There are actually 2 main obstacles right now when we're talking about a national unity government. The first one is let's say, the general fear of blue and white that Netanyahu won't respect the agreement that after 1.5 years, when it will be Gantz's time to be prime minister in the rotation, Netanyahu will find some excuse and will call on elections. This is one of the major fears of blue and white, because they know that the Israeli public don't like frayerim. I don't know if you know the word, but it means
suckers.
It doesn't work well in the Israeli public that you went to a deal with someone and he made a fool out of you, and you found yourself left with nothing. So they are very worried about it. We'll talk about it later if you want, the fractions inside blue and white, but let's say that this is one of the main concerns. But the other main concern is the whole Netanyahu's trial and the judicial system as a whole. Blue and white are saying, are very, very scared of a situation that they will enter a national unity government with Netanyahu, and the next morning we'll wake up and see in the papers that Netanyahu is attacking the judicial system, and maybe Ohana and Yariv Levin and all his MKs that are, just like we're hearing today, calling, for example, not to respect the court's decisions and things like this. This is destructive for blue and white, because their whole agenda is to be clean, to respect the system, and they are very scared of a situation that Netanyahu will, let's say, kill them softly from within. Even if he won't break up the agreement, but they will find themselves humiliated again and again, and they are trying to think what they can do to prevent this situation. They are asking to take the Ministry of Justice to the minister will come from blue and white, but Netanyahu right now is not willing to do it. What we see in these days in the Knesset is a blue and white attempt to make Netanyahu a compromise on these issues. First of all, to get a better agreement as far as the rotation is concerned, let's say a year or a year and a few months, not a year and a half, and that he will make bigger compromises on these issues, on the judicial system issue, because this is a main issue. And in order to get him to do it, they are trying to replace Edelstein, and they are now launching a bill that is meant to prevent anyone that was indicted from being prime minister. Why are they doing this? They are doing it because the political system as a whole thinks that Netanyahu wants a new election. He wants an election because he wants to control the Knesset, he wants to control his government, and he thinks that maybe he can get a better result. And they think that only if there will be such a bill that will make it very problematic for him to go into a new election, then he might come to them in better terms. So this is what we're seeing right now in the Knesset. I'd like
Daphna, a question from, sorry for interrupting, Joe Federman of AP asks, what happens if Edelstein refuses to obey the court's ruling?
Well, thank you for the question, because the answer is that we don't know, because it never happened before. It's supposed to be so basic and obvious that rulings are to be respected, and now we see that this is not what's happening. I don't think that Edelstein will do it. First of all, we see from this morning that almost all the MKs and the ministers from the right that were interviewed today said that even if they don't like the ruling of the Supreme Court, it has to be respected. And I don't think he has enough legitimacy at this point of time not to respect the Supreme Court's ruling. Maybe he will find a way to go around, and he will say that tomorrow, which is the final date that the Supreme Court asked him to bring it to the Knesset, he will say, tomorrow I will let you know when I will make the make the discussion about it. But I don't think he won't respect it. He can find some trick to maybe buy a few more days, but I think he will respect it because he has no choice, and or else he will break the law. It's very problematic.
So what are the chances of national unity right now?
It's a good question, because there is no other choice actually for both sides. Gantz doesn't have a minority government, And Netanyahu also can't form a government right now. Maybe if the corona crisis will get bigger and bigger, we'll see maybe the Labour Party willing to cooperate with him. But right now, as we speak, both of the sides need each other in order to form a government. And I'm not so sure that Netanyahu wants a new election. I know that everyone thinks that his polls are very good, and all the surveys show that he's going to win this time. But still, I think that he understands that this corona crisis is just the beginning. He doesn't know how it will end. And that's why both sides have an interest to cooperate. If it will happen, it can happen very quickly, maybe even before Wednesday. But if it won't happen before choosing the new head of the Knesset, it might take a few more weeks because Blue and White will try to pass the bill that will prevent him from being prime minister after he's indicted. I hope it's clear.
You talk about the Blue and White as if they are one entity, but we know perfectly well that they are not.
They're not.
What's going on with them right now?
Definitely, they're not. That's why I think that the Supreme Court was wrong this time, because I think that if Meir Cohen, which is from Yesh Atid, will be elected head of the Knesset, and the Blue and White and Likud will form a national unity government, and Yesh Atid won't be part of it, we will have a very, very problematic situation that the government and the Knesset are one opposed to another. The government will want to make, will want to pass bills, and will want to take out their policy, and the Knesset will have the power to prevent it. Because as we see right now, the head of the Knesset, he chooses the agenda of the Knesset. So it can be very, very problematic. And what we're actually seeing is a very serious attempt of Gantz to keep Blue and White together, to get Netanyahu to lower his price, and then convince Yesh Atid to enter with him to a national unity government. If again they will get the Ministry of Justice, and they will bring, they will have achievements in this negotiation between Blue and White and the Likud. But if it won't happen, definitely this party can be splitted, and then Ashkenazi and Gantz will form the unity government, and Yesh Atid and Ya'alon will stay outside. But right now, I always say that if you want to see where someone's going, you should look at his actions and not his statements. And when I look at Gantz's actions in the last few days, always when he has to choose between Netanyahu or his partners, he's still choosing his partners. There was not even one time that when it came to the moment of decisions, he chose Netanyahu over them. It doesn't mean it won't change, because we're facing a new reality with the coronavirus, but he's doing his best to keep his party together.
There's a question, what can President Rivlin, who already has shown his keen interest in having a national unity government, what can he do now to try to bang heads together?
Well, he can't do much. He's a player in the sense that if Gantz will want more time to have the mandate and try to form a government, he will have to come back to the president, and the president will have to approve it or disapprove. And it's important because Gantz is running out of time in order to pass the bills he wants that will prevent Netanyahu from running again for prime minister. And this is where he has an important role, because he can actually prevent Gantz from achieving this, from passing the bill, because he will run out of time. And on the other hand, we are facing holidays, we have the coronavirus. Gantz might have good reasons to ask for more time. So he will be a player in this sense, But aside from this, he doesn't have a lot of way to influence both sides. I just want to say one word because you stopped me before about another option, which is like an emergency government or something like this. It's like freezing the situation, that this government will keep on going as far as the corona crisis goes on. And this is something that Blue and White is actually willing to consider seriously. But we see that Netanyahu doesn't want this.
Oh, please tell us what kind of emergency government it will be.
Just like copy-paste what you see right now. You're freezing the situation for a few more months, and afterwards you keep on fighting. It's like just like let's take time out, freeze the situation for half a year, maybe even a year, and let's take it back from there because Blue and White needs this time. But we see a very interesting situation that Netanyahu doesn't want it. Netanyahu says to people that he spoke with in the last few days that he doesn't want to take the whole responsibility on his shoulders. He doesn't know where Israel is going. Today he said that Israel might be facing 10,000 death cases from the coronavirus in 1 month. And he says, I'm not going to take the responsibility on myself. They will sit on the tribune and give me remarks. And after a year, I'll have to face the situation and go back to to another election. He doesn't want it. And I think it's very not Bibi to not want more time in office in this constellation. So it's very, very important. It's very, very interesting to see how worried he is from the effect of this crisis that Israel is facing.
How do you think the recent report of the state controller on the preparedness of the public health system affect Bibi politically?
Well, it's part of the whole crisis. The health system is only one side of this very big crisis Israel is dealing. Netanyahu knows that the Israeli health system was not ready and he's suffering for very low budgets for many years right now, and he knows that this can be after all this is done, and we will be behind it and we will start to investigate what happened. He knows that this could be a very serious issue, but it's not the only thing that he's worried about. He sees the economy. Just today, we were reported of over 600,000 new Israelis that are unemployed. And Netanyahu knows that this can come back to him as a boomerang. He knows that all the responsibility can be put on his shoulders, and he's very, very worried about it. And I think that if I have real criticism towards Blue-White, it's not on what they're doing right now in the Knesset. It probably doesn't look good, and it looks like they're not dealing with important stuff, but just trying to pressure Netanyahu, and they do. But I still think that the way they are handling the coronavirus is very. They're actually not handling it. They don't have a voice in it. They don't have a position. They're not doing anything. Then even if we will go to elections, they won't be able to say, we wanted to do it differently. We thought that Israel should do more tests, for example. They have no position in this issue. And I think in this sense, Netanyahu doesn't have a lot of reasons to be worried, because there is no opposition to how he is running this crisis. And if I have to assume, Blue and White, right after they formed the Knesset committee that will deal with coronavirus, will take a stand in this issue, because if it doesn't, they will be irrelevant.
Carrie is asking, could Bibi not want the national emergency government to extend his time alone in office, because he also knows that his trial is coming in May, and therefore he wants to establish a government before the trial begins.
Well, there is no doubt that the trial is a main issue, and I think that everyone understands it. But I think he does want to form this national unity government, because if he's first, it means that even blue and white were willing to have him in office when he's on trial. He needs this legitimacy right now, and it's crucial for him to get it. Netanyahu has this way, he works, every time he has this challenge, he passes it and he goes on. Right now, he needs to form a government if he will get one more year in office and the legitimacy of blue and white. After 1 year, he will think it through. He will find a solution. That's how his mind works. And that's what Kahol Lavan blue and white is so afraid of, that they will give him the legitimacy and they won't have anything to go back with to their audience when they will face elections. So I think that Netanyahu wants this unity government because it will give him the legitimacy he needs, and he will come very strong to his trial. On the other hand, it's the first time ever that Netanyahu is willing to put an expiry date on his term. He's saying, I will be in office until September 2001. And Netanyahu knows, he wanted to avoid this situation for a very long time, because he knew that politicians that have an expiry date are much more weaker. So it shows that all these things together, the corona crisis and the situation that he's actually a minority in the Knesset, and his trial, and the fact that he doesn't know how all this will end, might bring him to the table in better terms as far as blue and white is concerned. And that's why they're trying to wait and to pressure him more and more in the Knesset.
We are ready to wrap up. If somebody has more questions, please type them now. I'd like to ask you something which I'm sure you won't like to do. Make a prophecy. What's going to happen? What, in your estimation, might happen?
Well, as I said, I think that if there will be a unity government, it will happen very quickly. But when I see what's going on, I'm not so optimistic. For example, a few days ago, the sides were already very, very close to form a unity government. And then the Likud started with the last things we saw in the Knesset, now with the ruling of Bagatz, Edelstein's decision not to form the committees. And I saw that it's getting harder and harder for blue and white to cooperate when their audience think that this is the end of democracy and the Likud is crossing every red line. And I don't see it going in a good direction. I don't know how to phrase it differently. The sides are, the gaps are huge, and in the middle is a huge lack of trust between the sides, especially towards Netanyahu. We know that Netanyahu is a very popular politician in the Israeli public, but he's very, very unpopular between the politicians themselves. Also in his camp, not only in the left and the center. And they're very, very, and they just feel they can't trust him, and that if they go in, he will humiliate them. And since Lapid and Ya'alon are very, very sure about it, and they are not willing to compromise at all, it's harder for Gantz to take this step because the price is very high to divide blue and white. So I'm not so optimistic today, but still we have to understand that this crisis could evolve very quickly and very we might see very dramatic things here in the next few days. And maybe this will be the ladder that will help them, the two sides come together.
One scenario we didn't touch, and this will be the last thing. Netanyahu failed in forming a government for the last 3 times. And it was Gideon Saar who said, we need to replace him because we're going to lose power altogether. You see a situation in which somebody or some people at the top of the Likud might say, guys, we need to bring Netanyahu to a small room. In the past, it was a smoke-filled room, but not today. And say, look, why don't you step aside, deal with your trial, and if you're acquitted, come back. If not, we need to keep Likud in power. You see such kind of a scenario?
Not really. First of all, because of the Corona crisis and the line of thought that says that it will be very, and let's say, very difficult to change the head of the government during this crisis. We even hear it in the left and center side. So in the right, it will be even harder. And the other reason I think that this won't happen is that in the previous round, we saw many Likud members that tried to lead they tried to form this kind of coalition against Netanyahu inside the party. And after the primary elections, it was obvious that the Likud members want Netanyahu. And this was only a few months ago. So this time, I don't even think that there will be a primary election. And everyone in the Likud understands that Netanyahu has the back of and the support of almost all his party members. So I think that the odds are not so big that this will happen. But everything is possible right now. Things that are very unexpected can still happen. Right now, this seems not very likely, I think.
Okay, Daphna Liel, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. Thank you, all the journalists who participated. Stay tuned to our next webinar tomorrow, 3 o'clock with Rabbi Yoshua Pfeffer, head of the Haredi department at Tikva Fund. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
Be healthy, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.